Let's bring in the Israel Defense Forces spokesperson, Major Doron Spielman, who also serves in the IDF reserves. Tell us about this prisoner release. 17 released, we understand. Is that the extent of it for today?
Thank you for having me, John. We are certainly on the verge of celebration as those hostages, the 17, you are correct, 13 Israelis, many of them young children who were snatched from their bed, and 4 Thailandese civilians are being returned into Israel as we speak. They're crossing over the border. They're going to be heading into having medical checks and then brought to hospitals where they are going to be reunited with their families. And this is really a mixed emotion, because on one hand, they're going to be embraced by their families, by the state of Israel. And on the other hand, a number of these children, their family members have been killed, and they actually don't have that information. So there is a tragedy that is really locked in with this joy, and it's just a symbol of the tragedy that Hamas inflicted upon Israel. But we're happy to begin getting our people home.
It is my understanding that the convoy of the former hostages is now on Israeli territory. So that is very, very good news. But we're still talking about relatively small numbers compared to the roughly 230 hostages that were originally taken. Only about a little over 10% have been released now.
Absolutely. The vast majority of our people are still inside those tunnels, deep inside the belly of the earth. We don't know if they are alive. We don't know if they're dead. Hamas has refused to allow the Red Cross to check them. Again, this is a heinous, imagine what these people are going through. They haven't seen the light of day. We don't know their health. And just being kept there is inhumane. It's a violation of human rights. It's a war crime. And we have said, and we're very, very clear, we're committed to this framework to bring home as many hostages as we can. As it allows, we will do whatever we need to do to bring home all of our hostages. For us, this is a pause. Our military objectives to destroy Hamas are not only on the table, we're committed to this because all of our people have to come home, and we have to make sure, John, that this can never, ever happen again. Not to us and not to anyone else.
We haven't really spoken about this, but Palestinian prisoners were released from Israeli custody as part of this deal, correct? Can you tell us about who they are?
Absolutely. There's a vast difference here. We are talking about Israeli hostages that were snatched from their beds in the middle of the night. The prisoners that we are releasing are all have associations with either terrorism or very security-based criminal activity. We are releasing people who you wouldn't want your children playing with. These are people who have thrown Molotov cocktails, have stabbed people, have attempted murder, and have associations with Hamas and other terror-related groups. It's a painful thing for us to be able to allow them to go back into society because we're afraid that they'll carry this out again, but it's a price that we're willing to pay. We hope that they are going to try to live a life of hope, but it's what we're willing to pay in order to bring our people home.
Do you know anything about the status of future hostage negotiations, future releases?
We do. We are committed to the agreement, the framework that is being ushered by Egypt, by Qatar, of course, with the involvement of the United States, says that over the next 2 days, there's going to be a continual round of the release of Israeli hostages that are being held. We're expecting 13 more tomorrow, hopefully 13 more the following day, and we're just waiting for our people to come home. And each of these waves, John, is a journey unto itself. These people, their journey has just begun. Just the mental, the therapy, the psychological process that they're going to need to go through, not only dealing with family members who've been killed, they actually don't know about October 7th. They don't understand what has happened. They don't understand the gravity and the scale of this attack. This is going to take months, if not years, for these people to reintegrate into society and hopefully live positive lives.
Obviously, the number of Israeli hostages is huge and far outweighs those of any other country. But obviously, I'm reporting for an American-based news channel. So far, American hostages continue to be held. No releases yet. Do you have any idea why that is?
You know, we have, of course, wondered the same thing on the Israeli side. We want the release of all of these hostages completely. Why we have not seen these American hostages come home is not known to us. What we do know is everything Hamas does, we have to understand if there is an opportunity for Hamas to inflict emotional pain, they will do so. One example is we're 8 hours behind schedule right now, John. The families that were notified that their family, their loved ones are coming home have been waiting for 8 hours. All of a sudden, we heard the agreement was off, and then it's back on. These delaying tactics are part of the psychological warfare Hamas is waging. They are exploiting us. They're exploiting you and the Americans. The taking of these hostages is just part of what they do. And therefore, we can assume that whatever is going on here is in order to inflict emotional pain. We are going to do everything. We're committed to bring all those hostages home, Israeli, American, and all those foreign nationals.
Hamas also blamed your side, the Israeli side, for some kind of a holdup in the release earlier today. They said they were putting it on pause because the Israelis were not living up to their agreements. Can you explain?
That is simply not true. We have committed to this agreement. It's being moderated by Egypt and Qatar. We have adhered to it. We have kept our word. We've honored all elements of that agreement. In fact, we have stopped firing on Hamas, meaning we have the noose around Hamas's neck, and we're closing in on them, and they were feeling that. And in order to allow our hostages to come, we've held back our fire. We've adhered to it. Qatar and Egypt are working tirelessly to try to ensure that Hamas will adhere to this as well. They've broken many agreements in the past. We're hoping this one time they will be able to keep to their word so we can see these innocent people who've been living this life of terror come home. We as a nation, their families, and the Israeli people, and I know people around the world, are all waiting for them just to come back to safety. And it's in Hamas's hands to keep their word.
Well, speaking of people around the world, there have been huge pro-Palestinian and even pro-Hamas demonstrations in places like New York and London and Germany. What do you say to the people who are out there protesting on behalf of the Palestinians and, frankly, against Israel?
What we've seen is really just, I think, something that is almost grotesque in how either misinformed or misdirected they are. We're talking about people who some understand, but some may not. They are supporting an organization that if those people had been on the Israeli border cities inside Israel at that time, they would have been killed, cut down, massacred, and taken hostage. It's just simply naivete to support an organization that is their main objective calls for the destruction of Israel and the death of a Jewish person anywhere around the world. They need to be ashamed. They need to mend their ways, and they need to come and apologize, because it's like standing with Hitler as he walks into Berlin. They may not understand what they're doing, but this is what we're talking about: true evil, true evil.
How much of those protests do you think are being fomented by the Iranians?
I'm sure that they are behind a lot of what's going on. John, the Iranian access is everywhere around the world, the largest sponsor of state terrorism. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't find direct links to this in the future. And I think this is really a question. I say that as an American as well as an Israeli. When I see this, and my own family lives in America in various places, I'm worried for their safety, because Iran, their terror doesn't stop at Israel's doorstep. We just happen to be first. Their goals are world terrorism. Just the same reason why our war with Hamas is not just a war with Israel. Hamas has its sights around the world. And I think many people in the world understand this. We have to be dedicated to wiping out this evil, because it's against freedom. It's against good. It is evil against good. And that's what we're facing. We just happen to be on the front line.
Well, again, there is a bit of good news this evening. The banner is on our screen right now. 7 children and 6 women released from Hamas captivity in Gaza. 4 of those we believe to be Thai nationals. The others are Israelis, and they are all now, we understand, on Israeli soil. Your final thoughts as we wrap this up, Major?
You know, it's a ray of light in a very dark period, John. It's prayers that have been answered, and it gives all of us hope to keep praying, to keep working hard, to keep up with our military activity. And we are thankful for the American people for standing behind us. Ultimately speaking, good will defeat evil. And we're going to see that play out in Israel and getting home the rest of our people.
All right, Major Doron Spielman of the Israeli Defense Forces. Again, it's good news tonight, and that's been in very short supply in your corner of the world. Thanks very much for coming on with us tonight.
Thank you, sir.